Do you love who you're doing it with? Do you wake up excited every morning to be able to climb the mountain again? And do you feel like you're making a difference?
You're listening to the Building Better Futures podcast, where innovation meets inspiration. In each episode, host Eric Hirani journeys alongside notable thought leaders who are shaping the future, cultivating exceptional work cultures, and nurturing the next generation of trailblazers. We aim to spark inspiration by engaging in dialogue with leaders from groundbreaking companies, innovative projects, and exceptional teams. Our goal is to empower individuals to positively impact those around them and leave a lasting legacy of positive change in our communities and society at large. Let's dive in together and explore what it takes to build better futures, one conversation at a time.
Today I'm joined by Tom Giordano, General Manager of the New York region at Suffolk Construction. Hey Tom, thanks for being here with us.
Hey, Eric, thanks for having me.
So I always like to start with good news and gratitude, so we're going to do that. Any professional or personal good news or gratitude you'd like to share with me in the audience?
Yeah, sure. There's always something to be grateful for. I think it's a good way to start the day or to start just about anything. So, and I guess I would say I'm grateful for our team here at Suffolk. I think even in the face of challenges, sometimes I see people in our organization are going through something personally that's difficult, or their families are. And I time after time, see the members of our team making a personal commitment, a personal reach out, some type of kindness that they bestow on these people to help give them strength. I think it's something that's a tone that's set at the top and that permeates our organization. And it's something that refreshes me every day. So that's my gratitude.
Love that answer. Culture is such a big part of what we do, and I think those two things work hand in hand, right? You get a dedicated team, but typically they're reflecting a culture that works for them, and I'm sure you guys are doing a great job of that at Suffolk. So it's very nice to hear and to be grateful for your team. I'm always grateful for my team, so I will also share that as a gratitude. They do so much, and it allows me to lift myself up, and hopefully, all tides raise all boats. So, I'm hoping they're feeling like they're coming along for the ride and all growing personally and professionally as well. And then my other gratitude on show days is always to the guests. We've had some incredible people on, you included, and it shocks me sometimes that you're willing to take time out of your day. I can only imagine how busy you are. But I think it also speaks to our industry and the people that make up the industry and how committed we are to improving, and helping the next generation and kind of talking about what we do in a positive way. So we can continue to build, here in New York, what I consider the greatest city in the world. So thank you for doing that and being on. So next, I just want to jump into tell us about yourself, your background, like, and start when you were a kid. Where'd you grow up? Schools you went to, your education, things like that. Tell us about yourself.
So I live now in a house that's a half a mile from the house I grew up in, which is in Eastchester, New York. I actually live in Tuckahoe, so just in lower Westchester. My mom still lives in the house I grew up in. We were a family of four, and pretty similar story where I live. We're, sort of grandparents came to New York through Ellis Island to the Brooklyn and the Bronx, and we gradually moved up north, and we stopped so far we've stopped in Westchester. We'll see where it leads. But, I think it was a great environment to grow up in. I think they were, I would say, the children and grandchildren of immigrants who were aspiring to achieve the American dream, who were excited about, I would say, our country and its values, and, willing to sacrifice maybe a generation or maybe two generations to provide opportunities to their children and grandchildren, and maybe not having enough to make them, I'll say the word spoiled, but, to keep them hungry. Right. And so I thought it was a really, great environment to grow up in. I was privileged to be able to go to a Jesuit school for high school. I went to the public school system up through eighth grade. Then I went to Fordham Prep, And I went out to Fordham College and then eventually Fordham Law School. So I started my career as an attorney. My uncle had been a lawyer, kind of a community practice in the Belmont section of the Bronx. I always emulated him and thought that was what I wanted to do with my life. So started as a litigator and then started to represent by accident construction clients who were in real estate and construction. And I think that was the beginning of the story, right? You sort of find sometimes you find these things accidentally. I know, Eric, you have a proud legacy tradition in the industry, but I almost discovered it by accident.
That is very interesting, and, I wanna jump into your background as an attorney, but before we do that, I do wanna talk about what you said about that there's, like, this fine line of growing up where, your parents need to keep you hungry, right? Like, excited to build something on your own, but also to live a nice and comfortable life, and, I didn't realize, like, how similar that I was raised in a very similar fashion, and it's hard, and now that I have a daughter, um, I worry about that, right? Like, how am I gonna make her I don't want her to be spoiled, but I also want her to be, enjoy her life growing up like I did, so it's a very tough line, there, so it becomes challenging. You said family of 4, so you have is that did you mean 4 in total, or do you have 3 siblings?
Yeah, that's right. I'm the oldest of four. I have a younger brother and two younger sisters, all of whom, we live within probably ten miles of one another. And we enjoy each other's families. Often on a Sunday, we'll end up at one of the houses and, and a lot of cousins, spending time together over a home cooked meal. Um, it's really great way for them to grow up.
That is amazing, and I don't live a half mile from the house I grew up in, but I live a few miles from where I grew up in, and, my parents are very close by, my siblings are close by, and I think it's great to have family nearby, so very cool story, but let's jump into, so you're an attorney, you're practicing law, real estate, and construction background, it sounds like. What how did you find yourself at Suffolk? Like, what drew you there? How does Suffolk's mission kind of align with your own values growing up? It sounds like you had a strong value-oriented family.
Great question, Eric. I think what it was I enjoyed the challenge of litigating. I enjoyed drafting, winning a motion, drafting a brief, settling a case. I really enjoyed that. I think it was really as I started to represent one client in particular. I remember walking through the city and that person was pointing out some of the buildings that he had been involved in various stages of his career and the stories behind it. And I think I would say I was so intrigued by how interesting that was and these monuments that were built and all that went into them, that I found myself steeped in history and, and, and sharing the pride that I felt when I was with that person. So, when I was offered a job to work for, and that company was then Bovis Lendlease, to be their in-house counsel, I took advantage. I said, I'm going to try this because it's exciting to me. I love the people who I'm interfacing with. I really enjoy engineers' way of looking at the world. Then that's a very broad statement, but I felt it then and I feel it now. And I was there for 17 years. I spent, Bovis Lendlease, then became Lendlease, and at some point I became their general counsel. Really, it was 3 years ago that I was given the opportunity by John Fish and Ralph Esposito. Ralph is my immediate boss and one of the co-presidents of the organization. And obviously John Fish, as you know, is its founder and sole shareholder. They were generous enough to make me, to provide me an opportunity to become a general manager in a non-legal role, trying to help build and grow our New York business. So here I am, I think just over 3 years later.
That's exciting, and, your time at Bovis Lendlease. I didn't know we've worked on a number of projects with them, and obviously now with their, the construction arm at least being part of Consigli now, so we're working with them a little bit too, which is interesting. Um, I before just John Fish, amazing story. I don't think I've ever met him, but I don't know him, but he's definitely an inspiration to a lot of people throughout this industry. So, um, for what that's worth, I think he's just cool. And then Ralph is just a close family friend and just such a great person. And so it must be so wonderful to work with, with people like that. It's got to be a great feeling for you.
It is great. Yeah. And look, I know he speaks very highly of you and yours as well. And I was just to comment on with Lendlease, it was probably that you didn't see me then was probably a good thing. Right. There was the people who did that usually were, there was some issue. So that was a little different, but, good to be here now.
Yeah, well, talk to us about that. Like, how does your background in law, right, influence your like executive leadership in construction? Do you sometimes have to like turn that part of the brain off? Like, are you reading documents? You're like, there's no way we should sign this.
Yeah. Look, I tried to, right? It's like my Linus blanket. It's something that I obviously I'm very comfortable with the aspect of, I would say, um, risk analysis, um, you know, good deal creation, and I think that, they're good transferable skills, but yeah, you should certainly do have to, and there are others, right? I had a team when I was at Lendlease. So, you're learning about the ability to, um, you know, work with a team and have an effective, efficient, value producing team. And that's kind of the same, you just put on a kind of different hat. But yeah, look, uh, I think what it really was in probably the last 6 years that I was at Lendlease, I was on the executive management team, really overlooking the entirety of the business and getting a view more than just of what I would say the purview of typical attorney would be. And, and so I think I had some tailwinds in kind of in this new role, but can I say that from the get go, there weren't some, imposter moments or moments where I was looking at my phone to figure out the definition of a detailed construction term. No, that certainly has happened and probably continues to happen. So it's a process, right? And it's sort of like when you go up to the top of the high diving board, you look down and you say, "My God, this is a long way." But you really, you also know that you don't really want to walk back down and get a warm towel, right? You're ready to dive in and make it work. So
I was, one of the like key skills, and I think it really helped shape me from being the leader I was to the leader I'm today, and hopefully will continue as I continue to evolve as a leader. Um, is in delegation, and so with your background in law and as general counsel at a very at large firms, do you like how did you first start to delegate that to I guess the general counsel you have today or the attorneys you have today in house? Was that a challenge? Like I don't know. I've struggled with that before. When I know I'm really good at something and I'm still going to hand it off to someone, that's hard.
yeah, you're right. And it's sort of like, sometimes I think, I still do where I say, not only I'm helping you because I can do this faster and and I can take away your work because I know how to do it. Right. And maybe at this point, I even know better. And it does involve that sort of what I'll call, that selfless mind shift, right? Where you're also saying, boy, in letting this person assume this responsibility, they'll learn, they'll get faster. You can help to impart knowledge and you can kind of give it away, right? At some point there, maybe they'll get better than you at, right?
Yeah.
And for that to be your aspiration, I think is something that, you know, for me, I would say it was probably becoming a dad that kind of solidified that thought process, right? You kind of go from that journey from being selfish to selfless. And I would say that probably helped me to make that shift. And then you realize the rewards that come with it, right? That and the intrinsic reward in itself is just to see people develop and mature, sometimes even to move on, right? But when you start relishing other people's success, it has so many intrinsic rewards that it's, you know, becomes almost second nature. So I would say that's it, but a journey, right? I'm sure you experience the same thing as a manager and leader.
No, definitely, and you just articulated so well, and I'm gonna share that with my leadership team tomorrow, but it's about relishing in others' success as much as it is about delegating, because that's what I have experienced, right? Once I was confident enough or excited enough to delegate a task away, they did one, like you said, they got better at it than I did because it was something they were really passionate about and they could hyper focus on. But two, they felt successful because they were able to accomplish something. And I've never heard it articulated so well. I love that. Like just relish in their success as part of delegation. I'm gonna share that with my team. I hope you don't mind. I will credit you. but
You don't have to credit me. Thanks.
that's a great one. All right, so let's jump into construction for a moment. Many years ago, it might have been when the office first opened. I had the pleasure of visiting the Suffolk office, and they took me to this. I don't remember. It's called like the technology room, or I don't know what the exact name for it was. But we were looking at jobs like in LA and in Miami and all over the country. And so I was just so fascinated by how like tech forward Suffolk was. And so my question here is kind of like, how do you guys embrace that technology component to construction? Does that excite you? And how is it like? How's it actually shape the customer experience? Right, you're going to turn over this product to an owner, whether it's residential, commercial, multifamily, whatever it is. Do you find the technology also impacts them, or is it mostly just impacting us on the construction side?
Yeah, great question and a lot there. So that room that you were in is called our collab,
Okay.
and it is in every Suffolk office. I think we're now up to 14 offices, geographic offices, nationwide, and the collab is a requirement of every one of our offices, and I think that sort of is a play on words in terms of, you know, a laboratory, but also a place where we collaborate. And the idea there, I would say from a macrocosm, is for it to as if you were maybe on a spaceship and you had full control of your entire environment. And I think the idea here is to be able to have, through the collab, through the use of technology and data, the ability to zoom into a project, figure out exactly what's going on, see what's working, what's not working, help to solve any problems that you come up with along the way and diagnose them, and then be able to kind of put it in a data lake so that you can use it for the next time and make yourself better. So, you know, that's the collab. And I would say that the, Suffolk, I would say that technology, is not its first priority. I would say our people are its first priority and really the only true asset that we have. Although we do certainly invest in technology companies, I guess you would call that intellectual property that, you know, we have as well. But it's certainly our people are by far, the first asset for our investment. But I would say that technology is kind of also in our DNA, and really what that is sort of an evolving desire to discover what's new from a technological perspective, with the goal of advancing this industry, with the goal of making us safer, faster, cheaper, um, and um, so I find that exciting. I think, and it's not really, I would say, you had asked whether it's an internal thing or external, and I would say it's both. But, I'd say one of the things that make it, one of the results of the collab is that we have very accurate, timely data coming into all of these offices at the same time. And I would say by extension, what we've done is we've offered it to our clients. And we've said, rather than us put together a report for you that's in a binder that's 400 pages long, and by the time you get it, it's a week old, we're going to give you access to what we look at. And we thought it was sort of, a value add to our clients. And also, at first, I think there was some discussion of, well, you know, does that put us in a weaker position because, you see warts and all? And I think ultimately we said, you know what, we kind of want you to see our warts. Like we're going on this journey together, and we'd rather you have that information than us try to come put together some story that's not there. Um, and so I think that's one way that the collab and sort of the way that Suffolk works is, I think is external based rather than just sort of focused on how we're going to be better.
Very cool. And I like the play on word collab to be collaborative because that's really interesting. And then, you talked about transparency there at the end, right? How important is that? Like, let's just be honest with the clients. Sometimes things are great. Sometimes they may be less than optimal, and we're going to share that with you, but we're going to fix it. And in the end, we're a partner you can trust. And I try to live by that too. We try to be as transparent as we can with their clients and let them know that you're picking us because we're going to deliver really quality product, but you're also picking us because if there is an issue, we're gonna be upfront with you and we're gonna help you solve it, right? And that's just such a great, I think a great way to practice, especially in construction. Because there's so many unknowns. No two projects are the same. You could put two identical towers right next to each other and they're still not the same project.
So right. You're so right. You hit it.
Very so in the other thing I really like about being tech forward is, you know, I, there are challenges in the industry around workforce and workforce development. And I think being tech forward will start to excite maybe some of the younger, like, the entry level workers coming out of either college or even trade school, right? They just want to be working for a fast paced company. Um, and so what are you guys seeing around workforce development? Are there any like particular trends or any statistics maybe that might be interesting for us to hear on that?
In terms of, you mean in terms of our ability to attract new talent, gestate new talent? Is
Yeah,
that
sure. Just in general, like industry wide. I don't know. I mean, are you guys feeling that? Do you find there's a shortage in trade labor? I hear that a lot. Is that something that you guys are experiencing or not really?
Yeah, no, I think we definitely are, right? And I think fundamentally, I would say that working in a trade, is difficult work, right? You're in part, often your body becomes, sort of part of your, the teaspoons that you measure out your life with is the sacrifice that you're making to your body, right? And the hours that you work are sometimes long and exposed to the elements, um, difficult. So, you know, I do think that it takes a certain level of, physical fortitude at a base level. So we certainly, I think that's something that is, at some point, I think, will technology be able to, to help that? Yeah, I do. I do. I think, you know, at that level right now, the focus needs to be on how to make that experience a human experience, to be thoughtful about those things like hours worked, and ability to maintain a healthy, sustainable lifestyle, right? But and then I would say more, on a different level, we've been competing with companies that, with fintech companies. We've been competing with, I would say, you know, pure technology companies for a long time, right? For talent, and for, you know, where I would say, the next generation are looking to, to make their investments of time. And, in my mind, technology is one way. Looking at ways to disrupt this industry, is something that I think, the next generation looks upon favorably. And if we do it right, can help to attract some of the best talent to help to lead us into the next generations.
And what about, so I know that's maybe more future. What about now? Like, how does Suffolk go about attracting talent and investing in the next generation?
Look, I would say, you know, several ways. I would say, one is we have several. I would say we have a program that's pretty well developed, and over time to make sure that we provide a meaningful experience to people who decide to work here, that allows for, I would say, really diverse avenues of exploration to figure out how within this, the broad services that we provide that somebody would best fit and grow and thrive. Um, um, we've had a career start program. I'm not even sure for how many years. It certainly has been here for much longer than I have, where we offer uh, uh, students, college students, the ability to do an internship followed by a 2-year rotation so that they can see the various aspects of our business, much as you would see in other
Yeah.
large companies, which I think allows for them to kind of really get a holistic perspective of this business and then, you know, decide where they see themselves best fitting in. On top of that, I would say we layer that with technical training, um, both online and live. And then I would say the ongoing, I would say self-development training. John in Suffolk make an incredible investment in our people and their ability to develop those, I would say, skills as being a leader, a manager, an operator. Um, that I think are the people who decide to join Suffolk very much appreciate. And I think is something that, goes hand in hand with the ability to financially make ends meet, right? You know, I think that, you know, constant feeling that you can continue to fulfill your, you know, desire to grow is here. Uh, and I think if that's real and it's, kind of see it work in action and you see the opportunities that are brought to you, that it's something that's very powerful and helps people to love this industry as they wouldn't probably any other industry.
Yeah, the love of the industry, I think, is what keeps a lot of us coming back. And very often it's just like, that when you see a project you've built, right, and you get to see the finished product and you see the client walk in or the owner walk in, or the first time a family occupies the condo, or the first time there's a class in that school, that feeling is like is unmatched. And like what about you? Do you have that feeling? Do you still have that feeling when you walk into a new space? Like what's the feeling you get when you walk into a space that your team helped bring to life?
Yeah. Eric, you touched on just such a great point. It's still marvelous. And, I find myself, my buttons bursting with pride, right? And that has not changed. It has not diminished. If anything, it's enhanced over the years. Just thinking about it, we had a difficult project that we were building. We were redoing an armory out in Jamaica, Queens, that was being used by the National Guard. Very challenging project, right? It was built under, I think the LaGuardia administration, nearly 100 years ago, needed a lot of work. Um, Not easy, but when we had the ribbon cutting and we had the National Guard there, and and they were so excited with the new space and able to kind of all those dreams that they had about what it would be like. Now you could see them looking to actualize them. Uh, when they were singing patriotic songs, to me, to see our team that had really endured a great deal to get it to the state that it was, and to see how appreciated they were, it was remarkable, and keeps you coming back, right? Even in the times where you walk into the naked space, the unfinished space, the space where you need the vision to be able to see how it could actually be realized, right? It's, yeah, still amazing to me.
It's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. Just speaking of the Jamaica Army, so I was mentioning that we were on the owner's side, and that was a very very cool project. So I'd love to talk about projects that excited us and that we've been a part of, and I appreciate you sharing that. Another thing I like to talk about towards this, as we wrap up here, is the next generation, right? So I always want to give successful people, because whether you know it or not, there are people out there that aspire to be like you. What is some advice you have for the next generation, right? You talked about some of the programs you guys have at Suffolk, but what does someone need to do to take advantage of the opportunities that life has, right? And as we advance in our career, you realize like that window gets smaller and smaller. So do you have any advice you'd like to share with the younger folks, either at Suffolk or just in general?
Yeah. So like three things just came to mind, and well, let's see if I have time to go through all three of them. But um, one was a friend of mine who works at Suffolk who just read a book called that I have not read. That's called The Five Types of Wealth, and and he was talking about you know one of those certainly being financial wealth, but the other being health, right? And that you probably could get Warren Buffett to give a good amount of his sizable fortune to be 20 years old again. I don't think you could go the other way. I don't think you would find a 20-year-old that's willing to trade that, you know, incredible wealth for that age. Um, so, I think it helps to put in perspective, that for, I would say, our young people, that their wealth, they're life billionaires, right? You're life billionaires right now. So I think to look at life that way is important generally. We recently were privileged to have Nick Saban come to present at one of our meetings. He sits now on our board of advisors.
Wow.
And what a cool guy. What a cool, interesting guy, interesting story for another time. But he always asked, he said his new recruits two questions. He said, the first one was what do you want to be? And he was interested in that answer. He never wanted it to be, that somebody wanted to aspired to be somebody else. It always needed to be sort of personally, what would they want to be? Where do they want to go? Who do they want to play for? What do they expect of that? What does that look like for themselves? And the second question was, do you know what it takes to get there? And are you willing to do what it takes to get there? So I guess that's three questions. But if they were not able to answer that or to say, no, I don't really have much, I have all the raw tools, then that person was not for him. Right. So was that person willing to engage in that difficult process that it takes to achieve success? And I say the third thing comes from our CFO, and he mentioned that he goes home to visit his parents in India once a year. His father is a doctor, and he said he asked them four questions. When he was visiting last, he said, "Do you love what you do? Do you love who you're doing it with? Do you wake up excited every morning to be able to climb the mountain again? And do you feel like you're making a difference?" And I thought those were so poignant, right? That, you know, and he went through, kind of the way he looked at the world and how he had, you talk about gratitude, right? To be able to say yes to all four of those questions is such a gift, right? And I would say if you're probably not answering yes to those four questions, and your exploration needs to take you in that direction, right? So I guess that would be the advice that I would give, all borrowing from others, right?
That is some fantastic advice, and, I wrote that book down. I do a lot of audiobooks, and that is definitely on my list, 5 Types of Wealth now. I thought that story about Buffett is, like, it's so true, right? Like, you wouldn't trade time for really anything.
Yeah.
It's a hard that's a tough question. I love the 4 questions at the end. And the Nick Saban, recruiting story, I had actually read that, in an article before. I try to read as much as I can on leadership, and it's a really and he's such a powerful, like, orator. I've heard him on videos and stuff like that. But to have him to experience him in person must have been just amazing. I'm a big sports fan. I'm actually gonna probably be going to a Bama game late, like whatever next season, but later this year. I have a good friend that lives down there in a season ticket, so I'm looking forward to that. So
Sure.
very cool. All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna close out and jump into our lightning round questions. So these are some quick hit questions, 1, 2 word answers. Don't overthink them. They're they're not industry related. So first lightning round question I have for you. I know you mentioned you have a big family, so I'm hopeful that you have one of these, but do you have a favorite holiday tradition?
I have so many. But I would say that, one of the ones that I really like is that, I'm of an Italian descent, and my wife is of Irish descent. And every year we kind of have the two feasts for Catholic saints that come in the same week, right? There's St. Joseph's is kind of the traditional Italian feast where you have pastries, you have what they're called sfingi and zeppoli. And then obviously you have St. Patrick's where you have corned beef and cabbage and potatoes. And my whole family loves that entire meal. My wife has become truly adept at baking the Irish soda bread and the corned beef and cabbage, and we do outsource the pastries. But I'd say we love tradition and sort of putting those traditions together. And
That's a really cool one. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say that. So what week is that during St. Patty's week, I
yeah,
guess?
that's right. It's usually, I think, it's the middle of March.
Very cool. So it just happened. Did you guys enjoy it?
Oh, we certainly did.
Good.
Totally did, Eric. It was great as always.
That's awesome. All right, next lightning round question. Favorite movie?
Ooh, tough one. Favorite movie. There are so many great ones. I'm gonna have to pause on this for a second. I love The Shawshank Redemption.
Great movie.
I love The Shawshank Redemption.
Give us a couple. What's
I
coming to
love
mind?
Blade Runner 2049. I love all the Dennis Villeneuve films. I think they're terrific. I love the old movies too. I love Casablanca.
Casablanca is such a great movie. And and I don't know if it would have been my favorite holiday tradition, but my wife and I do watch Casablanca every Valentine's Day, and it's like I actually look forward to it. It's a great movie, but it's just a fun, like it's a great way to celebrate. It's fantastic. That's very cool. And Shawshank, I think you'd be hard pressed to find too many people that that don't have that somewhere in a top
In
5 or
the
10.
top five, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Great movies. And then the last one is when you're not working 80 hours a week. What is your guilty pleasure? What do you do for fun?
It used to be playing basketball, but my knees don't let me do that anymore. So it's become golf. And I would say use the word pleasure loosely, although I do get a lot of pleasure out of it. But it's like everything else, it's been a journey. So I very much I'm enjoying, that starting late, but trying to catch up with a game that is so precise, and so I love that.
I love basketball. And about 6 months ago, I'm in like a CEO network group for construction CEOs actually.
Yeah.
And two of my friends in that group still play basketball. And I told them, I was like, I love basketball. I'm going to buy a basketball this weekend. I'm going to go out. I'm going to play. I did buy a basketball that weekend. I have since shot around with it one time, and I'm afraid to play pickup. I just you just don't want to land the wrong way, and it just messes up 6 months of your life or something.
I know.
But I would love to be able to play basketball again.
Yeah.
I do not love golf, but I've started to take golf lessons. Just, I mean, in our industry, you got to play a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
But, maybe the love will come.
yeah. So I'm enjoying it now that maybe I'm striking the ball a little bit cleaner. But if you're a golfer, we'll have to have you out to something. We play. My dad loves to golf. I don't know if you've met my dad yet or
Yeah,
not.
I met your
Oh, yeah.
dad. We were at the wine dinner, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Last year, and that several times, right? Pursued things together. Yeah.
He's a huge golfer. He loves to golf.
Yeah.
But
That's a nice pastime.
this was awesome, Tom. Learned so much, some great advice. Loved your story. Thank you so much for sharing that with everyone. That's all the time we have for today. So do you have any other final thoughts, Tom, you want to share?
Look, thanks so much for having me, Eric. It was great to have a conversation with you, and I very much appreciated the time that we got to share. So
And thank you. I know how busy your days are, so I always appreciate it. I think there's a lot of people that will be inspired by the topics and advice you shared. So thank you for doing that. We'll include any links to resources we mentioned in the show notes. And thanks everyone again for listening. Keep an eye out for our next episode.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Building Better Futures. The show notes include links to any resources mentioned in today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review. This episode is brought to you by Infinite Consulting Corp., your go-to firm for MBE certified project and construction management consulting. Discover how Infinite can help you build a better future at infiniteconsultingcorp.com.